The Galactic Marksmanship Tournament, the most prestigious shooting competition in the known universe, was about to begin. Contestants from countless star systems had gathered on the remote planet of Zephyria, each vying for the title of champion. Amidst the sea of alien faces, one stood out, a lone human female named Aurora Vance. She strode confidently through the crowded spaceport, her custom-built rifle slung across her back, ignoring the curious stares and muffled whispers that followed in her wake. A human, here, scoffed a towering reptilian competitor. They're barely evolved primates. What chance does she have against the likes of us? Aurora simply smiled, her eyes gleaming with determination. She had heard it all before. The sneers, the jeers, the dismissals. Humans were the underdogs of the galactic community, often dismissed as weak and inferior by the more advanced races. But Aurora knew better. She had spent years honing her skills, pushing herself to the limit and beyond, all for this moment. As she made her way to the registration desk, Aurora couldn't help but feel a thrill of excitement. This was her chance to prove herself, to show the galaxy what humanity was truly capable of. She had sacrificed everything to be here. Her family, her friends, her old life on Earth. There was no turning back now. The registration process was a blur of paperwork and medical scans, but Aurora barely noticed. Her mind was already on the tournament, running through strategies and scenarios, visualizing every shot with perfect clarity. She had studied the competition extensively, memorizing the strengths and weaknesses of each alien species, analyzing their shooting styles and techniques. But even with all her preparation, Aurora knew she was in for the fight of her life. The other contestants were the best of the best, hailing from worlds with harsher environments and more advanced technology than Earth. They had natural advantages that no amount of training could fully overcome. As she stepped out onto the main concourse, Aurora was greeted by a sea of hostile stares. The other competitors eyed her with a mix of curiosity and contempt, sizing her up like a piece of meat. Some openly mocked her, making crude gestures and laughing in her face. But Aurora simply smiled, her eyes flashing with a fierce determination. She had expected this reaction, had prepared herself for the taunts and the jeers. She knew that the only way to earn their respect was to beat them at their own game. "Laugh all you want," she said, her voice ringing out clear and strong. "But mark my words, by the end of this tournament, you'll all be laughing on the other side of your faces. I may be human, but I'm here to win. And I won't let anyone stand in my way." A hush fell over the crowd as Aurora's words sank in. Some looked shocked, others amused. But a few, the veterans, the ones who had seen it all, looked at her with a newfound respect. They recognized the fire in her eyes, the steel in her spine. This human was different, they realized. She had something special. As Aurora made her way to her assigned quarters, she couldn't help but feel a sense of destiny settling over her. She had dreamed of this moment for years, had worked and sacrificed and bled for it. And now, finally, she was here, on the cusp of greatness, ready to take on the galaxy and show them all what humanity was made of. She knew it wouldn't be easy. The road ahead was long and treacherous, filled with challenges and obstacles at every turn. But Aurora was ready for whatever the universe could throw at her. She had the skill, the dedication, and the sheer stubborn will to see this through to the end. And as she settled into her bunk, her rifle by her side, Aurora couldn't help but smile. The Galactic Marksmanship Tournament had no idea what was about to hit it. The underdog had arrived, and she was here to win. Aurora's first day of training at the Galactic Marksmanship Tournament was a grueling affair. The shooting range was a marvel of technology, with targets that moved and shifted in unpredictable patterns, simulating the chaos of real combat. Aurora had never seen anything like it back on Earth, but she refused to let her inexperience show. As she lined up her shots, Aurora could feel the eyes of the other competitors boring into her back. They were all watching her, waiting for her to make a mistake, to prove that humans didn't belong here. But Aurora was determined to give them a show they would never forget. Hours passed in a blur of laser fire and exploding targets. Aurora's arms ached from the recoil of her rifle, and sweat poured down her face, but she refused to give in to fatigue. She had worked too hard to get here to let a little discomfort hold her back. As the day wore on, Aurora began to notice a change in the atmosphere around her. The other competitors, who had once mocked and jeered her, now watched her with a grudging respect. Her skills were impossible to deny. She hit every target with a precision and speed that left them stunned. But there was one competitor who stood out from the rest. A grizzled veteran of a warrior race, with a face scarred by countless battles and eyes that had seen too much death. He watched Aurora with a different kind of intensity, his gaze calculating and appraising. As Aurora finished her last set of targets, the veteran approached her. "Not bad for a human," he growled, his voice like gravel. "But you're still raw, untested. You'll need more than just fancy shooting to survive this tournament." Aurora bristled at his words. "I've trained my whole life for this," she said, meeting his gaze with a defiant stare. "I'm ready for whatever this tournament can throw at me." The veteran chuckled, a harsh, grating sound. "We'll see about that, kid. But I'll give you this. You've got guts. And in this game, guts can take you a long way." With that, he turned and walked away, leaving Aurora to ponder his words. She knew he was right. The Galactic Marksmanship Tournament was more than just a test of skill. It was a test of character, of will, of the ability to keep going even when the odds were stacked against you. Over the next few days, Aurora threw herself into her training with a newfound intensity. She pushed herself harder than ever before, honing her skills to a razor's edge. And as she did, she began to notice a change in the veteran's demeanor towards her. He started showing up at her training sessions, offering gruff words of advice and encouragement. At first, Aurora was wary of his intentions. She had learned the hard way that not everyone in this tournament was to be trusted. But as the days passed, she began to see a different side to the veteran. He was a warrior, yes, but he was also a teacher. He had seen the potential in Aurora from the start, and he was determined to help her realize it. Under his guidance, Aurora's skills grew by leaps and bounds. She learned new techniques, new strategies, new ways of thinking about the art of marksmanship. And as she did, Aurora began to see the veteran in a new light. He wasn't just a competitor, or even a mentor. He was a friend. Someone who believed in her, who saw past her human exterior to the fierce, determined warrior within. Together, they forged an unlikely alliance. The grizzled veteran and the human upstart, united by a shared love of the art of shooting. And as the tournament drew ever closer, Aurora knew that with her new ally by her side, she was ready to take on the galaxy. The day of the qualifying rounds dawned bright and clear on Zephyria, a stark contrast to the tension that hung thick in the air. Aurora awoke with a knot of anticipation in her stomach, but she refused to let her nerves get the best of her. She had trained too hard, come too far, to let fear hold her back now. As she made her way to the shooting range, Aurora could feel the eyes of the crowd upon her. The stands were packed with spectators from across the galaxy, all eager to see the best marksmen in the universe compete for glory. But amidst the sea of alien faces, one stood out. A tall, imposing figure in a dark suit, his eyes hidden behind opaque glasses. Aurora felt a shiver run down her spine as his gaze locked onto hers, but she shook it off. She had more important things to focus on. The qualifying rounds were a blur of adrenaline and laser fire. Aurora moved through the course like a dancer, her rifle an extension of her body. She hit target after target with pinpoint accuracy, her shots ringing out like a symphony of destruction. The crowd watched in stunned silence as the human outsider defied all expectations, outperforming competitors with far superior physical attributes. But Aurora barely noticed the attention. She was lost in the zone, her mind focused solely on the task at hand. She had entered a state of perfect clarity, where everything else fell away, and all that mattered was the next shot, the next target, the next breath. As the final target exploded in a shower of sparks, Aurora lowered her rifle and let out a long, slow breath. She had done it. She had qualified for the next round, with a score that put her firmly in the top tier of competitors. The crowd erupted in cheers and applause, but Aurora barely heard them. Her eyes were locked on the mysterious figure in the dark suit, who was watching her with a strange intensity. As she made her way off the course, the figure approached her. "Impressive shooting, Miss Vance," he said, his voice smooth and cultured. "I must say, I hadn't expected such skill from a human." Aurora bristled at his words, but kept her tone polite. "Thank you," she said, "but I'm just getting started. I plan to win this tournament, no matter what it takes." The figure chuckled, a low, rumbling sound that sent shivers down Aurora's spine. "I have no doubt of that, Miss Vance. In fact, I think you may be just what I've been looking for." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small metallic object. It was a data chip, sleek and shimmering in the light. "This contains information that I think you'll find very interesting," he said, pressing the chip into Aurora's hand. "I've been studying human potential for a long time, and I believe that your species has untapped abilities that could change the course of the galaxy. If you're interested in learning more, come find me after the tournament. I think we could do great things together." With that, he turned and walked away, leaving Aurora staring after him in confusion. She looked down at the data chip in her hand, turning it over and over, her mind racing with possibilities. Who was this mysterious figure, and what did he want with her? What secrets did the chip contain, and what did it mean for her future? But as the adrenaline of the qualifying rounds began to fade, Aurora forced herself to focus on the present. She had a tournament to win, and she couldn't afford to be distracted by mysterious strangers and cryptic messages. She slipped the data chip into her pocket and headed back to her quarters, her mind already racing with strategies for the next round. The Galactic Marksmanship Tournament had only just begun, but already Aurora could feel the weight of destiny settling on her shoulders. She had defied the odds, proven herself to be more than just a human outsider. And with each shot, each victory, she knew that she was one step closer to her ultimate goal. To prove that distance was just a number, and that human precision knew no bounds. As Aurora progressed through the tournament ranks, the challenges she faced grew increasingly perilous. Each round brought new obstacles, new opponents, new tests of her skill and resolve. But with each victory, Aurora felt her confidence grow. She was proving to the galaxy, and to herself, that a human could compete with the best marksman in the universe. But even as she reveled in her successes, Aurora couldn't shake the feeling that something was amiss. Strange accidents plagued the tournament. Malfunctioning equipment, misfiring weapons, competitors mysteriously falling ill. At first, Aurora dismissed them as mere coincidence, the result of the high stakes and intense pressure of the competition. But as the incidents mounted, she began to suspect something more sinister at work. Someone, it seemed, was determined to sabotage the tournament, and Aurora had a sinking feeling that she was their ultimate target. Her suspicions were confirmed when she returned to her quarters one night to find her rifle missing. In its place was a note, scrawled in a language Aurora didn't recognize. She took it to her mentor, the grizzled veteran who had taken her under his wing, hoping he could shed some light on the mystery. The veteran's face grew grim as he read the note. "This is bad," he said, his voice low and urgent. "Someone powerful is working against you, Aurora. Someone with resources and influence beyond anything we've seen before." Aurora felt a chill run down her spine. "But who?" she asked, her mind racing with possibilities. "And why me? What have I done to make them want to take me out of the competition?" The veteran shook his head. "I don't know," he admitted, "but I have my suspicions. There are factions within the galactic community who see humanity as a threat, who fear what your species might achieve if given the chance. They'll stop at nothing to keep you from winning this tournament, to prove that humans are inferior." Aurora's heart raced with a mixture of fear and anger. She had come so far, overcome so much, only to be targeted by some shadowy conspiracy. But she refused to let them win. She was a warrior, a champion, and she would not be intimidated. "Then we'll just have to be smarter than them," she said, her voice steely with determination. "We'll watch each other's backs, stay vigilant, and keep pushing forward. They may have power and resources, but we have something they don't: human ingenuity and determination." The veteran nodded, a fierce light in his eyes. "Spoken like a true warrior," he said, clasping Aurora's shoulder. "Together, we'll unravel this conspiracy and show the galaxy what humanity is truly capable of." Over the next few days, Aurora threw herself into her training with renewed intensity. She pushed herself harder than ever before, honing her skills to a razor's edge. She studied her opponents relentlessly, looking for any weakness or vulnerability she could exploit. But even as she prepared for battle, Aurora couldn't shake the feeling of unease that hung over the tournament. Everywhere she looked, she saw signs of the conspiracy at work: whispered conversations in shadowed corners, furtive glances exchanged between competitors, strange figures lurking in the shadows. She knew that she was being watched, that her every move was being scrutinized by unseen eyes. But Aurora refused to let fear control her. She had come too far, sacrificed too much, to let some faceless enemy take it all away from her. And so, as the final rounds of the tournament loomed on the horizon, Aurora steeled herself for the fight of her life. She knew that the road ahead would be treacherous, that danger lurked around every corner. But she also knew that as the tournament reached its climax, Aurora found herself facing an unexpected challenge, one that threatened to unravel everything she had worked so hard to achieve. It began with a simple conversation, a moment of vulnerability shared with her mentor, the grizzled veteran who had become her closest ally and confidant. They were sitting in Aurora's quarters, discussing strategy for the final rounds, when the veteran suddenly grew quiet. His eyes, usually so sharp and focused, took on a distant, haunted look. "There's something I need to tell you, Aurora," he said, his voice heavy with emotion. "Something I should have told you a long time ago." Aurora felt a chill run down her spine, a sense of foreboding that she couldn't shake. "What is it?" she asked, her heart pounding in her chest. "What's wrong?" The veteran took a deep breath, his shoulders sagging under the weight of his words. "I haven't been entirely honest with you," he said, his gaze fixed on the floor. "My interest in you, in your potential as a marksman, it wasn't just about the tournament. It was about something bigger, something more important." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small metallic object, the same data chip that the mysterious figure in the dark suit had given Aurora after the qualifying rounds. "This chip contains information about a weapon," he said, his voice low and urgent. "A weapon that could change the course of the galaxy, that could give humanity the edge it needs to survive in a hostile universe. And you, Aurora, you're the key to unlocking its secrets." Aurora's mind reeled with the implications of the veteran's words. A weapon, a key. What did it all mean? She had thought that the tournament was about proving herself, about showing the galaxy what humanity was capable of. But now it seemed there was something much larger at stake. "I don't understand," she said, her voice shaking with confusion and betrayal. "Why didn't you tell me this before? Why keep it a secret?" The veteran's face twisted with guilt and regret. "I wanted to protect you," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "I knew that if the wrong people found out about your potential, about the weapon, they would stop at nothing to control you, to use you for their own ends. I thought I could keep you safe, guide you towards your destiny without putting you in danger. But I was wrong. I underestimated the forces arrayed against us, the lengths they would go to keep humanity in its place." Aurora felt tears stinging her eyes, a mixture of anger and grief welling up inside her. She had trusted the veteran, looked up to him as a mentor and a friend. But now, it seemed, he had been using her all along, manipulating her for his own purposes. She didn't know what to believe anymore, who to trust. But even as she struggled with the weight of the veteran's revelations, Aurora knew that she couldn't let her emotions cloud her judgment. The tournament was still ongoing, And she had a job to do. She had to focus on the task at hand, on proving herself to the galaxy, on unlocking the secrets of the weapon that could change everything. And so, with a heavy heart and a steely resolve, Aurora pushed aside her doubts and fears. She took the data chip from the veteran's hand, slipped it into her pocket, and turned her attention back to the tournament. She had come too far, sacrificed too much, to let betrayal and revelation derail her now. As she stepped out onto the shooting range for her next match, Aurora could feel the weight of destiny settling on her shoulders. She knew that the road ahead would be treacherous, that danger lurked around every corner. But she also knew that she had the skill, the determination, and the human spirit to see it through to the end. And with each shot, each victory, Aurora felt her resolve grow stronger. She would unlock the secrets of the weapon, unravel the conspiracy that threatened to destroy her, and prove to the galaxy once and for all that distance was just a number. And that human precision knew no bounds. The final match of the Galactic Marksmanship Tournament was unlike anything Aurora had ever experienced. Her opponent, an insectoid champion with lightning-fast reflexes and a reputation for ruthless precision, seemed an insurmountable obstacle. But Aurora refused to be intimidated. She had come too far, overcome too much, to let fear hold her back now. As she stepped out onto the shooting range, Aurora could feel the eyes of the galaxy upon her. The stands were packed with spectators from every corner of the universe, all eager to witness the climax of this epic competition. But amidst the sea of alien faces, one stood out. The mysterious figure in the dark suit, his gaze fixed upon Aurora with an intensity that sent shivers down her spine. Aurora knew that this was her moment, her chance to prove herself once and for all. But she also knew that the stakes were higher than ever before. The data chip in her pocket, the one that held the secrets to a weapon that could change the course of the galaxy, weighed heavily on her mind. She had to win this tournament, not just for herself, but for the future of humanity. The match began in a blaze of laser fire and exploding targets. Aurora and her opponent moved with a speed and grace that defied belief, their weapons flashing and sparking in the artificial light. The crowd watched in stunned silence as the two warriors danced across the range, locked in a deadly ballet of precision and skill. But as the match wore on, Aurora began to realize that her opponent was more than just a skilled marksman. The insectoid moved with a fluidity and agility that seemed almost supernatural, its reflexes faster than any human could hope to match. Aurora found herself struggling to keep up, her shots going wide as fatigue and frustration began to take their toll. With each missed target, each point lost, Aurora could feel her chances of victory slipping away. The crowd began to murmur and whisper, doubting the human's ability to compete at this level. Even Aurora's mentor, the grizzled veteran who had believed in her from the start, looked on with a grim expression, his faith in his protégé wavering. But Aurora refused to give up. She had come too far, sacrificed too much, to let this moment define her. With a final burst of determination, she reached into her pocket and pulled out a small metallic object, the experimental weapon upgrade that had been her secret ace in the hole. The upgrade was a marvel of human ingenuity, a testament to the boundless potential of her species. It was a targeting system unlike any the galaxy had ever seen, one that could lock onto a target with pinpoint accuracy from miles away. Aurora had been saving it for this moment, knowing that it was her only hope of victory. With trembling fingers, she attached the upgrade to her rifle and took aim at the final target. The insectoid champion, sensing the shift in the balance of power, unleashed a barrage of laser fire in Aurora's direction. But Aurora barely noticed. Her focus was solely on the target, on the single shot that would decide her fate. Time seemed to slow down as Aurora pulled the trigger. The laser beam arced across the range, a streak of brilliant light that cut through the chaos and confusion. For a single, heart-stopping moment, the entire galaxy held its breath. And then, with a deafening explosion, the final target burst into a shower of sparks and debris. The crowd erupted in cheers and applause, their voices rising in a deafening chorus of triumph and jubilation. Aurora had done it. She had won the Galactic Marksmanship Tournament, and proven once and for all that human precision knew no bounds. As the medal was placed around her neck, Aurora felt a sense of pride and accomplishment unlike anything she had ever experienced. She had defied the odds, overcome every obstacle, and emerged victorious. But even as she basked in the glow of her triumph, Aurora knew that her journey was far from over. The secrets of the weapon, the conspiracy that threatened to destroy her, still loomed on the horizon. But for now, in this moment of glory and celebration, Aurora could allow herself a moment of peace. She had proven herself to the galaxy, and to herself, and with the strength of the human spirit at her back, she knew that she could face whatever challenges lay ahead. In the aftermath of her stunning victory at the Galactic Marksmanship Tournament, Aurora found herself swept up in a whirlwind of celebration and adulation. Everywhere she went, she was greeted by cheering crowds and awestruck admirers, all eager to catch a glimpse of the human who had defied the odds and proven her species' worth. But even as she basked in the glow of her triumph, Aurora couldn't shake the feeling that something was amiss. The mysterious figure in the dark suit, the one who had been watching her throughout the tournament, had disappeared in the chaos of the final match. And the data chip, the one that held the secrets to a weapon that could change the course of the galaxy, weighed heavily on her mind. Aurora knew that she had to investigate further, to unravel the threads of the conspiracy that threatened to destroy everything she had worked so hard to achieve. And so, with a heavy heart, she bid farewell to her newfound fans and set out to find answers. Her search led her to a remote corner of the galaxy, a place where the stars burned cold and the shadows held secrets best left undisturbed. It was there that she found the tech mogul, the man behind the dark suit, and the data chip, waiting for her with a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. "Congratulations, Miss Vance," he said, his voice smooth and insincere. "You've proven yourself to be quite the exceptional specimen. But then, I always knew you would be." Aurora felt a chill run down her spine at his words. "What do you want from me?" she asked, her hand instinctively reaching for her rifle. "What's this all about?" The mogul chuckled, a low, sinister sound that echoed through the empty room. "You really don't know, do you?" he said, shaking his head in mock disbelief. "The tournament, the weapon, the conspiracy, it was all a test, a way to find the perfect candidate for my little project. And you, Aurora Vance, have passed with flying colors." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small metallic object, a second data chip, identical to the one Aurora had been carrying. "This chip contains the blueprints for a weapon unlike any the galaxy has ever seen," he said, his eyes gleaming with a mad light. "A weapon that could make humanity the dominant force in the universe, that could crush any opposition and ensure our species' survival. And you, Aurora, are the key to unlocking its power." Aurora's mind reeled with the implications of the mogul's words. A weapon of unimaginable power, a conspiracy that stretched across the stars. It was almost too much to comprehend, but even as she struggled to make sense of it all, she knew one thing for certain. She could not let this madman have his way. "I won't be a part of this," she said, her voice steady and resolute. "I won't let you use me as a pawn in your twisted game. The tournament, the weapon, all of it, it ends here." The mogul's smile twisted into a sneer, his eyes flashing with anger and contempt. "You foolish girl," he spat, his voice dripping with venom. "You think you have a choice in this? You think you can defy me, after all I've done to bring you here? I own you, Aurora Vance. I created you, and I will use you as I see fit, whether you like it or not." Aurora's hand tightened on her rifle, her heart pounding in her chest. She knew that she was outmatched, that the mogul had resources and power beyond anything she could imagine. But she also knew that she had something he didn't: the strength of the human spirit, the unbreakable will that had carried her through every trial and tribulation. "You're wrong," she said, her voice ringing out clear and strong. "I am not your pawn, your plaything. I am Aurora Vance, champion of the Galactic Marksmanship Tournament and proud representative of the human race, and I will not be used by anyone, least of all a madman like you." With those words, Aurora raised her rifle and took aim at the Mogul's heart. She knew that this was a battle she might not win, that the odds were stacked against her in every way imaginable. But she also knew that she had to try, had to fight for what she believed in, no matter the cost. And as the first shot rang out across the starlit void, Aurora felt a sense of calm wash over her. She had made her choice, had chosen to stand up for what was right, even in the face of impossible odds. And with the strength of the human spirit at her back, she knew that she could face whatever challenges lay ahead, no matter how daunting they might seem. In the weeks and months following her confrontation with the tech mogul, Aurora found herself at the center of a galaxy-wide storm of controversy and change. The revelations about the mysterious weapon, the conspiracy that had sought to control her, had sent shockwaves through every corner of the universe. Governments fell, alliances crumbled, and the very foundations of galactic society seemed to tremble under the weight of the truth. But amidst the chaos and confusion, one thing remained constant: the unwavering support and admiration of the human race. Everywhere Aurora went, she was greeted by crowds of cheering fans and awestruck admirers, all eager to catch a glimpse of the woman who had proven once and for all that humanity was a force to be reckoned with. For Aurora, it was a bittersweet triumph. She had achieved her goal, had shown the galaxy what human precision and determination could accomplish. But she had also lost so much along the way: her mentor, her innocence, her faith in the very institutions that had once seemed so unassailable. And yet, as she stood before the crowds and the cameras, Aurora knew that she could not let her personal struggles define her. She had a responsibility now, a duty to her species and to the countless beings who looked to her as a symbol of hope and inspiration. And so, with a heavy heart and a steely resolve, Aurora set out to forge a new path for herself and for humanity. She became a leader, a visionary, a voice for change in a galaxy that had grown complacent and corrupt. She used her newfound fame and influence to push for reforms, to challenge the status quo and fight for the rights of the oppressed and the marginalized. At first, the establishment pushed back against her efforts, dismissing her as a naive upstart with delusions of grandeur. But Aurora would not be deterred. She had faced down worse enemies than bureaucrats and politicians, had stared death in the face and emerged victorious. And with each victory, each small step forward, she could feel the tide beginning to turn. Slowly but surely, Aurora's message began to take hold. People across the galaxy, human and alien alike, started to take notice of her words and her deeds. They saw in her a beacon of hope, a shining example of what could be accomplished when individuals stood up for what they believed in. And as the movement grew, as more and more beings flocked to Aurora's banner, the old order began to crumble. Governments toppled, corporations fell, and a new era of justice and equality began to dawn across the stars. At the forefront of it all was Aurora, the human sharpshooter who had started it all. She had become more than just a champion, more than just a symbol. She had become a legend, a shining beacon of hope and an inspiration for all those who dared to dream of a better tomorrow. And as she looked out across the stars, at the countless worlds and species that had been touched by her message, Aurora knew that her journey was far from over. There would always be new challenges to face, new enemies to overcome, new heights of precision and skill to aspire to. But she also knew that she would never have to face those challenges alone. For she had the strength of the human spirit at her back, the unbreakable bond of unity and purpose that had carried her species through every trial and tribulation. And with that strength, that unshakable resolve, there was no limit to what they could accomplish, no distance too vast to be conquered. Aurora smiled, her eyes shining with the light of 1,000 suns. The precision revolution had begun, and she would be there to lead it every step of the way. For in the end, distance was just a number. and human precision knew no bounds.